Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I am your host, Andrew Hitz, and I have just watched my co-host, Lance LaDuke. He is still trying to untangle his headphone cords from his chair, and he actually almost fell out of his chair, which I was rooting for, even though at this age it might require hip replacement surgery. Lance, how are you?
I feel all tied up in knots. It was pretty funny. I was enjoying it as well.
Lance gets frustrated to the point where he curses about stupid things that aren't a big deal, like once or twice a year, just like me. Did I say year? Yeah, for me it's a little more frequent than that. But yeah, this was one of those times. That was I enjoyed that a lot because I'm a bad person.
I'm winded now.
So this conversation that we just had with Julie Landsman is amazing.
It was one of my favorites.
What a remarkable human.
Instant favorite of mine. I just, she lived. It's one of those, you meet your heroes kind of thing, and she just lived up to everything I suspected about her.
Yes. And and it started with her sharing some stories about Sam, which I had forgotten that they had worked together, which was amazing to hear that. And like early Sammy too, really early, early.
In a quintet with her and him Gould. And Gould, and a trio with her and Gould and Dave Taylor. What? I can't process that.
No, not so much. So, but yeah, her approach to life, her approach to teaching, her approach to playing, the hostile work environment that she entered initially at the Met and how she navigated that, just remarkable, absolutely remarkable. This was one of those that flew by. I'm always glad when we kind of give them an out time so that I can keep my eye on the clock, because someone like her, I could just, you want to talk again tomorrow? So, so much to unpack.
That's how you do it. Do what she has done and you're good. Just as a player, as a person, as a teacher, as a mentor, as a friend, okay. That's how you're supposed to do this. I get it.
Also, the bonus episode that we recorded with her, which you can find out more at patreon.com/thebrassjunkies. We have bonus episodes with countless brass players, including a number of her colleagues like Jim Pandolfi and Mark Gould and Sam Palafian. Really, it was also really, really great. So, and some of it was, some of the bonus episode was heartfelt, and then others, there was, she said, I'll save the juicy stuff, the juicy story, she said, with a twinkle in her eye for that. So, some good Gould stories. So all Gould stories are good, but then there's some really good ones, and she told one that was awesome. So, Anyway, this is really, really special. Thank you to everybody who supports the show. Thank you to everybody who's gone to Apple Podcasts or wherever you get podcasts and left a rating and a review. That's a really helpful way for other people to find the show. And also, last part of this announcements is the Brass Junkies Academy Summer Workshop. It is only $109 for clinics with 15 of the world's best brass players, including former Julie Landsman student, principal horn of the Philadelphia Orchestra, Jen Montone. We got Joe Alessi, we got Carol Yonch, we got Pat Sheridan, we've got Demondre Thurman. The list just goes on and on and on. It's all $109, and the whole thing is available all summer long. You can watch it as many times as you would like until September 1st. So you can go to brassjunkies.academy or brassjunkiesacademy.com, and you can register today. I think, without further ado, let us get to the conversation that we had with the amazing, incredible, and remarkable Julie Landsman. And today we are joined by one of, I would argue, the most important brass players of the last century, which is a lot of pressure here. So you need to be interesting and engaging and entertaining. And
I try to be like that every time.
I wasn't talking about you, Lance.
Oh.
I was talking about Julie Landsman. Julie, how are you?
I'm doing really well, all things considered. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, you have been, this is funny. We've been doing this for a long time now, and you were on our shortest list possible when we first started this, but neither Lance nor I know you personally, although now that we've been on Zoom for 5 minutes, I feel we're very close. But we just hadn't reached out to you yet. It's just like one of those things. And then all of a sudden I said, wait a minute, because everyone's stuck in their houses, and busy people like you, I was like, I bet she might be free. And you said yes, and we are so honored for you to be here.
Thank you for asking. And I actually feel like I know you because of the Sam Palafian posts on Facebook. Sam was a colleague and a dear friend. So I really was moved by your responses and postings. Thank you for those.
Oh, no. Well, thank you for saying so. Well, actually, let's start there. How did you know Sam, other than the fact that you were two colossal figures in the brass world?
We freelanced in New York together, and we played in a crazy brass quintet. One of the members, besides Sam and I, was Mark Gould. Need I say more?
Holy moly.
You seem normal for being in a quintet with Gould and Sam at the same time.
Well, I've calmed down, but we were pretty wild all together.
Wow, who else was in that quintet?
I've blocked it out. I'm sorry. It's like,
with the help of a therapist.
Just in memory. There was another point in time where Gould and I were in a trio with Dave Taylor. That was
oh, jeez.
But I cannot recall who else was in this particular quintet.
Wow. So you knew Sammy from Miami in his New York days.
Yes, a long time ago. We played in the ballets together at the Metropolitan Opera. There were many incoming ballets, and we got to work together, and he blew my mind. Such a beautiful player and a dynamic human being.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. There you go. So yeah, you've played with the Met a few times, haven't you?
Yeah, just a few.
Principal horn for a quarter century. That was quite a run you had there. Talk to us about when you first joined the Met. What was that like?
Well, that was 1985. And please excuse my dog barking. She wants me at all times, and she's just letting us know she's not happy without me at the moment.
We had one guest that had, I'm not lying, there were sheep in the background. It was like in a flock. So this is nothing. Don't worry.
That was Andy Ballio. He was at the Sheep and Wool Festival, and which we didn't quite understand. And anyway, I mean, we interviewed him, and there's literally sheep throughout the. He'll be talking about, I mean, like meditation, like something really deep, and then you hear this, and then it's like it's over the top. So your dog is nothing.
Ballio from yoga and meditation before he was Andrew Ballio.
Before he was like in Lights Andrew Ballio.
I mean, at that point, he had a Sanskrit name. I don't know if you know about this.
No.
Oh, I don't think so.
Anil, A-N-I-L. We met at a yoga retreat. I was practicing, and he showed up. He said, "Who are you, and what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm doing my asanas, but I'm also practicing so I don't get out of shape." "Who are you?" "Oh, I'm taking a year off of," I think he was still at NEC.
Right.
He was taking off time to get himself together. Anyway.
Right. Yeah. He did mention the full year off. I do remember that, and about how he wasn't sure if he was coming back, and he obviously came back.
That's when we met. I'm curious if hitting pause would be good, and I'll go get my dog and she can join us because this is annoying.
Absolutely. Go for it.
Hit pause.
Okay. So you have a quote that I read somewhere, which is one of the best quotes I've ever read by any brass player. Might be my favorite ever. And that is, quote, "For my early years at the Met, my section consisted of many angry men, and my only weapon was to play better than all of them. It drove me to excellence," end quote. Okay, first of all, that's thank you for putting that into the world, because like when I read that again, I didn't know you personally. I was ready to like run through a brick wall after I read that quote. Um, but can you talk about what it was like when you first started?
It was tough. I was the first woman in the Met Brass section. I had won from behind a screen anonymously, which has been documented in Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink.
That's
The
right.
last chapter describes my Met audition. And when I walked out from behind the screen, there were only men back there. And several of them were rather upset.
Wow.
They walked to the back of the room as if to say, who is this person that just won? And are we going to take orders from her? There were only 2 or 3 that came to congratulate me. Mark Gould was one of them. We knew each other. And my former teacher, Howard, who was so proud. They came up to congratulate me. And so did Jimmy Levine. He was on that committee as well. But I wasn't walking into friendly turf.
Wow.
And I knew that. The former principal, Horn, had stepped down, possibly with a little bit of pressure. I don't totally know the whole story. But originally they had advertised third Horn. And I said, no, I'm not interested. But when it turned from first to first Horn from third, he had stepped down, and then I was interested in taking that audition. So it wasn't the most comforting cushion to walk in and do my best.
Wow. And isn't that it's amazing just the how the story played out, which is that the first woman was a principal. I mean, that's like, talk about ripping the Band-Aid off, right? I mean, it wasn't even somebody that they could just talk down to. I mean, yeah, you were in charge of the horn section. I just cannot imagine.
And they were all men, and they were all older than me, some old enough to be my dad.
Wow.
It was stressy. I have not run my career as if I was a trailblazer, even though I am, and I don't mean to deny it. But if I chose to take that path as a younger player, I think I would have walked around with a chip on my shoulder. And again, I'll repeat that quote. My only defense was to play better than they had ever heard and better than any of them could possibly play. So it was an inspiration. I turned the challenge into inspiration.
How long? What was the? So that was your welcome.
Yeah, right.
So
Welcome
then,
to the neighborhood.
how long? Like, what was that first month? Say week, month, season. You know, how long was it? Did it ever get better? And if so, over what period of time? Or did you just have to kind of wait them out? Or what was that evolution like? Or was there
It
not?
took quite a bit of time to turn it around. Quite a bit of time. There was a lot of resistance that things were different and had changed. And the former principal had run the section with a tight fist. And that's not my leadership style. I lead by example. And I feel that if you're setting an example of beautiful playing and humanistic qualities, it's the kind of energy I want to be surrounded by. So I did my best to bring my most conscious self and best playing to the game every day. It was a lot of pressure.
I've known you 12 minutes now. My impression is that you don't just show up. That wasn't the first day that you became a strong person.
No.
And so what was it about? Do you think it was your parents, or it was just sort of your makeup, or it was just the experience? Like how is it that you created this situation for yourself?
There's many layers to that answer. One layer is that it wasn't so easy growing up in my household. Challenges with my parents, challenges with my school as far as my interest. All I had interest in school was band. So all I wanted to do was practice my horn, which I did. I funneled all of my needs into practicing and developing a skill that I seemed to have a natural gift for. And I had a tremendous drive to survive and excel and be heard. In my household growing up, I could barely speak. I would stutter, I didn't literally have a stutter, but I couldn't find the words. There was so much chaos in my family that I needed a voice, and I needed my own voice. And the horn was the perfect vehicle.
Was that the first instrument that you were drawn to?
No, I played the piano badly, and I was a disaster at the banjo.
Oh, how would you know?
Julie, today we are joined by failed banjo player Julie Landsman.
Indeed.
Thank you.
And it was a 5-string banjo. It was a disaster. And the piano, my parents bought us, my sister and I, piano lessons, but they would set a timer for 30 minutes of practice, and I kept going up to the kitchen to change the timer on the stove as if nobody would notice that only 10 minutes had passed and the bell rang.
So when you got onto the horn, who was it that kind of lit that fire for you that this is the instrument for you?
One person. I'll start with Joe Greco. Joe Greco was my band director in Ardsley High School, New York. Joe was a beautiful trumpet player, and we had a great high school band. And he needed French horn players, so he's the reason I picked the French horn. He told my mother French horn lessons were free, and he needed horn players. And my mother said, well, I like a bargain. Let's get the girl a horn. So we did a single F King from Sam Ash and White Plains.
Wow.
And the rest is history. I could not stop playing. The minute I picked it up, I could make a sound, although I held it backwards with the bell pointing back because I really had no idea what a French horn was or how to hold it. But I had been to a band concert where I had seen baritone horn bells facing forward, and I thought, well, maybe those are French horns. And what do? Do they sit backwards? How do they see the conductor?
Yeah.
So that was my first blow on the instrument, but I took to it really quickly. Joe Greco was my teacher, and because I was good at it right away, and I was so desperate to have a voice and be recognized and excel at something, all of my energy went into the horn. And then fast forward a year, Joe brought Carmine Caruso to work with our high school band. I get choked up when I think about it because Carmine shaped my world. Amazing. Lucky me.
Boy, it's you started this by talking about Sam and about seeing my posts about it. Isn't it amazing how the universe just like brought Caruso into your band room, and that's just like that was obviously meant to happen, especially because you have continued on with all of the teachings. And yeah, imagine your life if that hadn't happened.
It's a hard one to imagine. It was such a blessing that Carmine appeared, and basically his message was, I like you just the way you are. He was my Mr. Rogers. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Sam and Mr. Rogers, I watched that episode.
Yeah.
Carmine was nothing but loving and supportive. And Howard then became my horn teacher. Howard was the first horn of the Met, so Joe Greco turned me on to Howard and Carmine Caruso. And these two men shaped my career and changed my life.
How early, I mean, it sounds like it was just this awesome, it's like the Avengers movies, just like the right superpowers showed up at the right time. So how soon after you picked up the horn did you become aware of what the horn could do at an orchestral level or as a soloist, or how early did you really fine horn playing? I mean, it sounds like pretty early on.
My parents, as difficult as it was being their child, they also supported me and bought records. So the first record I listened to of a horn player was, of course, Dennis Brain doing the Mozart Horn Concerti.
That's pretty good.
It's a good start. And then the next record that my mother bought for me was Capriccio Espagnol and Capriccio Italien. So I listened to that, and I just like heard this horn in the orchestra. I was like, yeah, I want that. And then I believe the next recording was the Brimes Trio, and I believe it was also Dennis Brain. So I used to play along with the record just to get it into my cells, and it was so much fun.
Wow.
So there's a lot to unpack, especially with the Carmine Caruso pedagogy, and I know that that's been a real, I don't know, mission's the right word, or it's been a real passion of yours to share that.
Passion is a good word. Thank you, Lance.
So, and I also don't want this conversation to be about everybody but you. Can you talk about why, what it is about that approach, methodology, pedagogy that is so important? And I feel like that was the Caruso method was a thing I knew about growing up, and then I feel like it sort of subsided for a little while. And I'm really excited to see you championing is a word. And so can you sort of pick that thread up anywhere you would like and just talk about either what it is or why it's important to you or how it impacted you or how you try and pay it forward?
Oh, there's many. I can unpack that question too. First of all, it's a no-nonsense approach without a lot of focus on how to. It's a matter of repetition of the exercises that teaches your body reflexively how to move. And there's nothing analytical about what your embouchure does, put your lip here, do this, that. There's none of that stuff that makes people crazy, paralysis through analysis. It doesn't exist. It didn't for me in this method. So it just gave me a tremendous foundation without the neurosis. Very, very grateful. The biggest piece I can just say is timing. Everything about the Caruso approach is based on precision timing of movement. Well, according to Carmine, and I've never counted, but I believed him, there's over 200 muscles that go into playing one note. I'm not sure if that's that accurate number. I'd really like to know, but his point was coordination. How do you get them all to move at the same time? The answer is precision timing. And if you watch baseball players with an upbeat and a downbeat, or golf swings, or basketball players in training, this is a training for the game. The game is how we physically manifest our playing, and it gives a platform of security for your musicality. So never mistake the Caruso for anything other than a way to give you the equipment to play beautiful music.
That's a beautiful way to explain it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was like, she has answered that question before. Yeah.
Well, I believe there's been some misunderstandings out there, and perhaps, Lance, that's why you say it went on fade down for a little while. Perhaps.
Well, I think people want it to be harder. I think people want there to be some like massive explanation, and I want to be able to buy a gizmo, and I want to be able to like go study with the, like at some point you just kind of need to get your rear end into the room and put the horn on your face and figure it out. And this seems like a no nonsense. You don't need another mouthpiece. You need a little more time. You need to focus on the important things.
Learning by doing.
Yeah.
And repetition.
Yeah.
Which really changes the neuroplasticity of your brain, which is very in these days in terms of happiness and well-being and meditation. There's so much about changing the neuroplasticity of your brain. Well, with Caruso, it's like going through a hamster going on a treadmill or a rat going through a maze. You keep repeating it and go back to the beginning and you repeat. All of those brain cells learn the path to it without having to fuss. It's just by repetition.
It's the neurons that fire together, wire together thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but without analysis, you just rinse and repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it fascinating that we, the world, knows a lot more about the brain and brain function than we did when Caruso walked into your band room, and all of the additional knowledge we have only supports this type of a method more and more. It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and it really gives you the option to not make yourself crazy. As long as you follow the rules and have a good teacher, or I hope my videos help, but it's even better if you have a teacher who's studied the method, and especially better if they've studied the method with someone who's worked with Carmine.
As a quick aside, in the show notes will be a link to Julie's website, and on her page is a link to the YouTube channel, which has, I think that I count by 9 or 10 videos at least about this. So
Thank you. Yes, they're there. Although sadly, last summer they disappeared. And if anybody out there can help me figure out how YouTube videos with tens of thousands of hits disappear, I would sure like to know, because I had to repost them last summer, and the numbers aren't as impressive as they were before they went missing. I don't know what happened. I got paranoid that somebody pulled them down. I really don't know.
Just call 1-800-YouTube. You'll get a human right away, and they they can get right to the bottom.
I got so much help from YouTube, let me tell you.
Oh boy. And actually, if you click on the Caruso method at the top, the top tab on her website, not only are all, I think, 12 of those videos there, but there's also a link for sheet music and a suggested practice calendar, which is like, there's just so many resources. It's really great. And there's an awesome photo of you and Carmine from 1972 up at the top too, which is
Thank you.
yep, yeah, that's good stuff. So
Those
videos are great. Say again?
You did your homework.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the least we can do. So
we don't always, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
We're interviewing Julie bleeping Landsman. It's like I should at least spend 5 minutes here. So yeah, there you go.
You've heard about my name.
That's what I think. That's what that most of those people on that committee were calling you after you and your non-male self walked around from the screen and said, "Hello, gentlemen, nice to meet you." So
at that point, JFL were not my initials. That came later from teaching a student who didn't practice. I was so mad at him. I said, "Stop wasting my time. Don't you know who I am? I am Julie Bleep Landsman."
I didn't know this at all.
Unbeknownst to me, my students took on the name. And behind my back for a decade, that's what they were calling themselves. One day, a student started to laugh. He said, "Well, we have a name for our quintet." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Oh, no, I can't tell you. I can't tell you." "Alex, you have to tell me." It happened to have been Alex Keeley, who's the star of my Caruso videos.
Right.
So he then told me what my name is, and now I love my nickname.
Right.
And I also have a mouthpiece that Terry Warburton's making for me called the JFL model.
Nice.
That's really funny.
That is really good.
You know what else is funny? Since we specialize in awkward segues, I was literally just about to thank Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for the Brass Junkies. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz artist model tuba mouthpiece and the LFL model euphonium mouthpiece. You can find out more. And I just had to think. This is funny. I just had to think as I was talking. Wait, what are Lance's initials? And I was like, LL. No, or is that no? Yeah, I got it. Anyway, find out more at ParkerMouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I love it that a student that they were calling you that for 10 years, which means it was passed on and on. Like, yeah, that's like many generations of 4-year students. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I love it too. And there's a certain persona that goes along with that name. And I have to be in a good mood to really wear that persona. If I'm at all down or upset, I can't live up to my nickname. So it's a good attitude that takes that attitude.
So, did you miss playing with the Met when you retired?
I still miss it, and I retired in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
It's something to miss. It doesn't get any better than the Met. Beautiful, beautiful music, wonderful colleagues, the most amazing singers in the world, the acoustics, the setting of the Met. It was my dream job since I was a young girl. So I, for many years, pinched myself walking in the stage door. For at least a decade of working there, I couldn't believe that I was filling the big shoes of that first horn chair. And it is something to miss. I mourn the loss and I celebrate the brilliance of my timing when I left. 25 years was plenty on the hot seat. I left when I could still be proud of my playing and before people wanted me to leave. I had seen too many colleagues overstay their welcome, leave with their reputations tarnished, and their colleagues kicking them out the door. And I refused to do that to myself. But I put too much into it to have any smear on my reputation. So I picked exactly the right time to get out. Do I miss it? Every day.
How long before 2010 had you made the decision? Like how far in advance of the decision did you make the
Well, when
decision?
I turned 50, I took a year leave of absence from the Met, and I had been there 18 years. So let's see, I was born in 53. I guess that was 2003. I turned 50. How's my math? Good?
I think they're pretty close, yeah.
And when I took that year off, I really would have been okay if I didn't go back because the 18 years were intense. I had done many ring cycles, including recording it. I'd played so many operas and been on the hot seat for so long that I could have not gone back if it weren't for the fact that the Met has a retirement rule called the Rule of 80. And there's a beautiful pension waiting at the end of the rainbow. And I had 7 more years before I hit that Rule of 80. So I let my pension dictate my retirement, and the minute I hit the Rule of 80, I was out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Speaking of the ring cycle, one of your former star students, and you've got a bunch of them, but Jeffrey Pilkington, who has been a dear friend of mine for a very long time. But I saw the National Opera. They did the ring cycle. I guess this was a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
I saw the dress rehearsal of Siegfried, and he was just stunning. I mean, it was like, and I found out afterwards that day that I think he slept on his shoulder wrong to the point where he almost didn't do that run because he was in so much pain. And he just the long call, everything was just absolutely exquisite, world class. Like, it can't be done any better. What is it like to have students who have gone on to achieve things like Jen Montone, like Jeff Pilkington, like others? What's that like as the teacher to witness?
There's many parts of what you just said I want to respond to, but just to work backwards, to sit and live in my legacy, there are no words, honestly. I get to go play with Jen in the Philly Orchestra. Oh my God.
Yeah, she's
amazing. I actually played some of that ring cycle backstage, which you did not know, in the Washington National Opera.
There you go.
Jeff invited me to play.
Wow.
Even more horrifying was the day of that dress rehearsal that you're talking about.
Uh-huh.
My phone rang.
Oh.
And it was the former personnel manager at the time. It was Aaron Doty. And he said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" Jeff Pilkington is injured. we have it. Actually, it was tonight. Can you get on a train this morning and come out and play Siegfried for us? Jeff hurt himself. You don't understand. That wouldn't be a good idea. How many years after my retirement, I'm not going to walk in and play the first horn on Siegfried. I don't think so. Thank you for asking, but no thanks. So Jeff actually got himself to a chiropractor that day and took a bucket load of Advil, and he is just so talented and such a strong personality.
Yes.
And he made himself do it, and he rocked.
Yes, he did. I had no idea until, he obviously had a crazy day. He wasn't texting me that day to keep me in the loop, and I found out after the fact that he had been going through that, and you wouldn't have known it by the plan.
I want to come back to this question, but could you hit pause one more time?
Yes.
Thank you.
Go for it.
The question about what's it like to play with my stars, Jeff Pilkington, Kevin Rivard, principal horn of the San Francisco Opera and Ballet. We got to play together with the Chamber Music Society a few years ago. I always take second seat to them. I do not pull rank at this point. I'm just honored to sit in their bell and hear how beautifully they play. And Nathaniel Silberschlag's my most recent success story. He's the new principal horn of the Cleveland Orchestra.
Yes.
He's been my student since he was 12. We did some Skype lessons way back when.
Really?
And then I spent a few months living in your town. You're in DC area, right?
Yes.
I played first horn in the National Opera for a while because Jeff was having his first baby, and there was Tristan, and the conductor knew me from the Met, Philippe Auguin. So I lived in DC on and off for a few months, and I got to work with Nathaniel Silberschlag in person when he was 14.
Wow.
Then he came to Juilliard, and the rest is history in the making. So it's beyond. I also played in a horn section at the Met with 4 of my students. Because since I got in, there were more auditions in the horn section, and some of those angry men left, and they were replaced by wonderful young women who were my students, who won the audition behind a screen like I did, anonymously. So what went from a rather uncomfortable situation became so supportive and so sweet when I was surrounded by my students, my loving, loving students.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's something I haven't really thought about as a tuba player. I never got to play professionally with Sam. I mean, it's like, an orchestra, there's a tuba. I mean, there are exceptions for pieces, but in a quintet, there's a tuba. But horn, of course, there's sections. So it's like you actually have much more opportunities to actually perform with former students, and the number that you've gotten to perform with. What a gift.
And to this day, I still perform with them at various work that I still take. And I don't do that much professional playing anymore. But when I do, it's always preferable for me to have my students with me. For example, at the Music Academy of the West in the summer, which unfortunately this summer is going to be online, but for the past 7 summers, every summer I play with my students. What a privilege. There's an orchestra in New Jersey, the Montclair Orchestra, where I get to hire my students to play with me. And my very favorite local student is Michelle Baker. She was my second horn at the Met for 18 years. Any chance we get to play together, we do. And also Julie Pyland, who's in the Met Orchestra. Any chance she and I get to play together, whether it's a recital at Bard or whether we practice and warm up together, which is just a thrill, or whether it's Eric Reed, who was a graduate student of mine at Juilliard. I play with Eric and Orpheus.
Yeah, he's
so
amazing.
Many of my former students and I have the privilege of sitting together and working together. It's absolutely the best.
What I really want to encourage everyone to check out Julie's page, because there's a list of your former students, and I don't know how up to date that is, but it's a who's who. It's like, it's mind boggling when you look at the list of students and what they're doing now. It's just
Thank you. Thank you so
stunning.
much for
Yeah.
mentioning that. I was very select with who I put on that list. So if somebody just had a few coachings with me, they're not there. But the students who I trained at Juilliard and had several years at least to work with, they're on my hit list.
When did you start teaching? Was that something that you started right away when you started working with the Met, or did you? What was the evolution there?
Well, before I got into the Met, I was in the Houston Symphony for 3 years. And while I was in the Houston Symphony, I taught at the University of Houston, where I was Michelle Baker's teacher. And she's phenomenal, not only as a player, but as a teacher and as a colleague and a friend. I just adore her. And we met when she was a college kid in Houston. I also taught at Rice University at the Shepherd School when I was in the Houston Symphony, and that was 82 to 85. So I guess that would be the official beginning of my teaching career. I then went to the Met in 85, 86 season, and I started at Juilliard in 89.
Gotcha. And so I'm at the point now where I have just a a fraction of the students that are out doing things, and but the feeling that I have in seeing them succeed is it's hard to describe. It's like, it's mind-boggling in a different way than my performing career. To see them go off and do incredible things hits me at a much deeper, more emotional level. It feels, the playing things I'm sort of proud of. I'm proud of the things that I've done, but that I feel almost selfish, like thinking about that stuff. But then to see them run fast and far is a different kind of thing. And so I'm just imagining how deep that must be for you, because you've had so many successes and continue to have. Does it hit you that same sort of way?
I'm so glad you understand. I can see in your eyes that you really have the depth of feeling in your heart that when you nurture and raise a student, and it's almost like having a kid, but these are my kids because I don't have any of my own. So I have tons of kids around the world who I've nurtured and continue to. With many of them, it's an ongoing relationship. There are no words. As I see it in your eyes, there are no words. It is so deep to know that you've changed somebody's life for the better, and to watch them flourish in what you help them create for themselves. It blows my mind, and it makes my eyes tear.
Yeah, me too. Well, speaking of tearing up, I want to talk about Jim Nova at Duquesne University.
Julie, our brand is awkward segues. So that's like we actually lean in on the awkward segues.
So Mary Papper School of Music at Duquesne University is a sponsor of the Brass Junkies, and we thank them for being so. They have done this they were one of our first sponsors and one of our longest sponsors. And so if you want to find out more about what's going on at the Mary Papper School, you can click on the link in the show notes. And very, very special thanks to Jim. I have nothing more to add, Nova, for making that possible. Sorry about the awkward segue. We went from this really emotional, touching kind of moment to mayhem. But, yeah.
This was, yeah, I was like, wait a minute, this is way too useful. Like, we need to go back to our brand of jackassery or people are going to get confused.
Lance just hit overload and he needed to change.
I did. Yeah, release valve. Yeah, well, we just had this. I was very honored. Roger Bobo ignited this project, and there's about over 100, I think, euphonium and tuba players from all over the planet did this arrangement that Scott Sutherland did of Nimrod, and so we each recorded our part and sent it in, and when the video came out, it's overwhelming with how many players there are. And for sure, I noticed when I was on the screen, because it kind of moved around, but I caught like, oh, there's one of my students and there's one. So there were like 4 students on there. And I just thought, this is the coolest thing. And I mean, I was honored to be a part of it, but to see them do this thing, it's remembering, you said you had Skype lessons with which student? I forgot.
With Daniel Silberschlag.
So with Daniel at 12. And
Yeah.
so I remember all these students the first time I met them, in the first few lessons, and that just to see that growth. And it's like you said, I have kids, and it is similar to that. It is this kind of, you remember the entirety of the experience with them. And so then to see where they are after living through all of the struggles that that they had, and all of the challenges and setbacks and successes, it's just it's the best. It's the best. It's so much fun.
There's another piece to that I want to add, and that is, as a teacher, you give, but you don't expect back.
Right.
It's our job to give. The only way I feel I can expect to get back is to help them grow, feel their appreciation, and continue to support them. That gives me a lot. But it turns out when I hit some hard times in my life, these students had my back. And I never expected it. And it just brought me to my knees because they were there. They literally held me up for a couple of years, going through some personal hard times. And forever grateful, and also was so surprised to get back when that's not the deal as a teacher. You don't go into it thinking, they're going to give it all back to me. No, not at all. You give because it's the way you show your skill set and your love and your support. That's the job.
Amen.
Boy, when I hear your students talk about you and what you've meant to their careers, you can hear you can hear the gratitude in their voices when they say it, and then when I hear not just the list of all the successes. Obviously, you are quite a good teacher, like just the teaching part of it, because you don't just get lucky to get all of those students that come through your door. Even when you teach at a place like Juilliard, it doesn't work that way. But it's even just your approach to teaching and the role of the teacher and all of that. I mean, it's not surprising that they are so loyal to you, because you obviously are it doesn't sound like you could possibly be any more committed to their success as players or as people than you are, which tends to get some loyalty in return. So, yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
I wanted to ask you about one more quote from that I found of yours, and then we're going to ask you for. I always like talking to super woke people like Julie here, because I think maybe she might be the one that can crack through for Jens with his chop problems. But we'll no pressure. But we'll see. So, but before we go there, this quote I loved. You said, "I highly encourage people to set their dreams and their goals and to take care of all parts of your being, not just as a player, but as a human being." And we've been kind of talking about that for the entire time so far. But can you talk about the importance of, and especially right now, as we're all trapped in our houses, and all dealing with some more than others, but we're all dealing with so much right now. Just talking about the importance of taking care of yourself as a human being as a part of the artistic journey.
I can answer all of those questions and wrap it into one.
Great.
I mentioned growing up was a little difficult for me in my household. It required a lot of help. And I was smart enough to know I needed help. So at a very young age, I asked my parents to get me therapy. I knew I needed help. Their response was, "Oh, no, you're fine. You couldn't sit down and play your horn." I said, "No, I really do need this help."
Wait, so what? I'm sorry to interrupt, but what age were you when you requested therapy?
14.
That is remarkable.
I just knew, believe me, I was acting out. I was definitely... cruising for a bruising.
But generally speaking, 14-year-olds who are acting out are not also equipped with the self-awareness to be the one that that instigates that's remarkable. Anyway, I'm sorry. I just had to get that number because I had a feeling it was going to be something that blew my mind, and it was.
Well, it started at a young age where I knew that I needed extra help. I have no shame about asking for help. I ask for help when I need it. I offer help when it's needed from me.
Mm.
So I've done a lot of self exploration, whether it be through yoga or meditation or manifestation of my dreams. So when I was 12 and started the horn, eventually I became the student of Howard Howard, the first horn of the Met. I think I was 13. At that point, I decided I wanted what my teacher had. I wanted to be the first horn of the Met. That's when I was 13 years old. It took me until I was, I guess, 32 to realize my dream. But my whole trajectory from age 13 on was about becoming first horn of the Met. So I'm very much a believer in having your dreams and moving forward and doing everything possible to make them come true. Right now, during this pandemic, as crazy and as difficult as it is, I'm not the type to go, woe is me. I will not do that. I might have a down day here and there, and I do. This is not easy. But I try to maintain optimistic and have hopes and dreams. And one of my hopes and dreams for the last decade was to segue my teaching and my life to the West Coast. So here's the big news flash.
Oh, right.
I've been hired by USC.
No kidding.
And I've got 2 more years at Juilliard where I'll be finishing my teaching. I'm very sad to leave my alma mater. I love it there so, so much. But I've had a dream to go to the West Coast. My entire family is in Los Angeles. I own a home in Santa Barbara where I work in the summers. It's paradise.
Yeah.
And I've just been waiting. Will Colbert open up? No, Andrew Bain is firmly ensconced there. Will USC open up? Well, in January, my friend and colleague, Christy Morrell, posted on Facebook, I'm taking a job at Baylor University. And I was like, writing to her in Messenger, what? Is there going to be any sort of job search? Because put me on that list.
There's not going to be a job search if you're interested. Yeah,
Well said. So it took until this pandemic for the job to be posted and for me to apply for it and to get a Zoom interview. The Zoom interview was a month ago.
Did you just say, well, I'm sorry, did you just say, I'm Julie bleeping Landsman and then just hit and then hang up? That's it. Just four words.
It was a funny interview because, as I mentioned, I like talking about myself. Well, I really learned it in that interview because if there ever was a time to sell yourself, it's on a Zoom interview for a college position you've been waiting 10 years for.
Right.
So although I blushed quite a bit, I was definitely blowing my own horn in a big way. And it took about 2 weeks after that for them to go through all the red tape and all the difficulties of universities during this pandemic before they came back to me and offered me the job.
Wow.
So I am in the process right now of transitioning.
Wow.
I will be, for the next 2 years, living in New York, teaching at Juilliard, but also going to USC 3 times a semester. And after the 2 years of this arrangement, I'll leave New York, I'll leave Juilliard, and let me tell you, just saying it makes my throat catch. I'm a New Yorker. Right. I was born and raised here. This is my town.
Right.
But I feel like jump off that cliff, take a chance, follow a dream. It has always served me well, and I'm hoping for the best.
Wow. Love it. There you go. Well,
Big news.
speaking of Southern California, you're going to be right down the street
taking a chance
taking a chance. You're going to be right down the street from a certain Jens Lindemann, and yeah, as you know, I bet a name like Julie is going to bring a lot of people who have probably never heard the podcast before. So, yeah, we make fun of our friend Jens every single episode because while Lance is good at the euphonium and I'm on some days good at the tuba, we are not nearly as good as we are at driving a joke into the ground. So, right? Yeah, that's a brief glimpse of self-awareness. But we, as you I'm sure know, Julie, that Jens has been dealing with chop problems forever, and we've asked 100 consecutive guests what their advice would be for Jens in this desperate time for him. And you have this whole this holistic like Caruso method that you learned from Caruso, and you're woke, and I mean that in a non-sarcastic way. You're the perfect person to help him to get through this. So, future Southern California neighbor Julie Landsman, what is your advice for Jens Lindemann?
Well, thank you so much for asking. I'm flattered that you think I can help the great Jens Lindemann, who is the teacher at UCLA for trumpet, if I'm not mistaken.
That is him.
Well, I do have some advice for you, Jens. Do you remember that beautiful woman you dated when we first met? Her name is Ann Scherer. Ann Scherer, your girlfriend and my student at Juilliard, knows the Caruso method. So I just want to suggest, if you're in deep trouble, that you give Annie a call, and she will teach you what you need to know to fix those poor chops of yours. You have all my empathy. Having chop problems sucks.
He needs to call his ex-girlfriend. I love it. So we ask, we have to explain to everybody, do you know Jens Lindemann? And I love, our favorite thing is when I say, do you know Jens Lindemann? And the person says no, and then Lance says, perfect. So because then we're like, you're about to make fun of this guy who you don't know. And Julie, she got a little twinkle. She's like, oh yes, he used to date one of my students, a long time ago. So I was like, and then Lance said, perfect. Yeah, so.
Well,
anyway.
Andrew, I remember the moment of meeting him.
Oh.
He walked Annie to my studio at Juilliard for her lesson, and I opened the door, and there they are, and she introduced me to her boyfriend. I was like, you're cute.
Oh, boy. There you go. The Canadian national treasure. Yep. Charming, even the great Julie Landsman. There you go. Well, and the best part about the Jens, the ongoing Jens joke, which I think you'll appreciate this, Julie, is that that his wife, Jennifer Snow, who's one of the most amazing pianists in the world, that she will listen to the Brass Junkies and will occasionally walk up to him for particularly good Jens advice, and will literally put her phone on speaker and just hit play and hold the phone up to him and make him listen to the advice, which we find hilarious. So
perfect. Well, no offense to his beautiful current wife.
Oh no.
His ex Annie. I hope that's okay.
It'll be fine, I'm sure. So, and I think Jennifer would be the first to admit she's not helping him. So, nobody is. We're all trying. So, all right. Well, this has been amazing. We are going to have Julie and Julie's dog stick around for the bonus episode here, which is going to be just a continuation of this. She said that she would get juicy with her stories for the bonus episode. That is available for our Patreon patrons, and we've got bonus episodes with Jim Pandolfi, with Sam Palafian, I'll tell you a story, Julie, to start the bonus episode about Jim Pandolfi, which is going to make you laugh. I guarantee it. And we've got just tons and tons and tons of bonus episodes with each guest, and with Gould, and it goes on and on. So, Julie, this has been wonderful. I thank you so much for joining us. We tell every guest that it's been a pleasure, and we usually mean it, but for you, it's like, this has been awesome. I feel rejuvenated. So thank you.
Thank you so much for asking on one day's notice. I think we did a good job.
I think we did too. And that's going to do it for another episode of the Brass Junkies. You've been listening to the Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to hear the bonus episode featuring today's guest, please visit patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to learn how you can support the show and instantly access all bonus materials, as well as gain access to a special patron-only Facebook group. The Brass Junkies is produced by the amazing, wonderful, and truly inspirational Will Houchin. The theme music was composed by Fernando Dados and performed by Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. We are at Pray for Jens on Twitter and Instagram and have a Facebook page at facebook.com/prayforjens. You can find out more about the Brass Junkies and all the other Pedal Note Media podcasts at pedalnotemedia.com. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.